Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today is Tuesday, May 16th. If we could all stand and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tonight's agenda, I'll go through it kind of quickly, but first of all, we have a motion to approve a couple of contracts with the DPW and authorize town manager to enter into those contracts. We have the treasurer collector here to discuss a bond anticipation note. We will be discussing a first right of refusal on property that was offered to the town under Chapter 61A. We will also motion to approve an intermunicipal agreement that town manager will bring to our attention, and that's a renewal. We're going to be discussing the acoustics in the town hall and how to address that. We will be discussing a funding source for the Whitney and Racine monuments that traditionally are cleaned every year in anticipation of Memorial Day exercises. We have a discussion tonight on the EMS Fire Advisory Committee. We will be discussing and appointing annual appointments to various boards and committees appointed by the Board of Selectmen. We'll be discussing our summer meeting schedule. We will also be discussing liaison assignments, where the board traditionally works as a liaison to given departments that are outside the purview of the board's authority. We will be discussing a general bylaw also relative to the potential to change the annual town meeting date to a time after the annual town election due to a multiple of reasons, but we will discuss that as we go through that process. And then there is other topics unanticipated that members of the board may be bringing forward. So if we could first, could we please have approval of the minutes?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Which ones? Sorry.
Last meeting,
Okay.
which would have been the
May 2nd?
first. Oh, second, that's right.
Just with the deletion of lines 90 through 89 through 98.
Those are the regular meeting minutes
Yes.
notes. Motion second and make it a majority, unanimous action of the board. And the regular executive session?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept the executive session minutes as written.
Second.
That's unanimous action of the board. Okay, for recognition, do we have any?
No, sir.
None.
I would like to make a couple announcements. First of all, it's with a degree of sadness that we lost one of our more prominent and well-known citizens. Harvey Trask passed away at the age of 83. Harvey was, as they call, a townie, even though he wasn't born in Upton, he was raised here. His mother was at one point a teacher and librarian, and Harvey, as I say, spent his whole life here. He served on a number of boards. He was on a commission of trust funds. He also served in the Industrial Capital Committee, and I had the pleasure of serving with him on the feasibility study back when we were having a feasibility for the Nipmuc Regional High School. So our sympathies go out to the family of Harvey. Also, on another note, I'd like to recognize Joe Laurie. Joe served on the Zoning Board of Appeals for over 30 years. Joe was dedicated, quiet servant. Was very below the radar, as they say, but he did a great job and served in that capacity, like I say, for well over 30 years. So, Joe, thank you for your time of service. And lastly, which is also a nice to be able to say these things, the fire chief received a letter from a citizen whose wife was almost prepared to deliver a child when she had complications, and they rushed her to the hospital, and the comment was that if another 10 minutes had elapsed, it could have meant her life and that of the baby. So kudos to the EMS department. We'd like to do something going forward. That's up to them, but certainly thank you to them for their diligence and response to a tough situation. So that's it for recognition. The town manager, you have anything you want to go over with us at this time, or as we go through the warrant, through the meeting?
A couple things. One is the RFP for the study that was approved at town meeting for 3 Milford Street has been completed. It's also been advertised. If a design contract is over $10,000, you need to put it in the central register, which comes out once a week, and that was sent in today. So that'll be publicized. And then we also have a list of engineering, architectural firms that we'll contact and make sure that they get the RFP. And I'll let the board know, we ended up, because of it going into the central register, changed the due date on that. I believe it's June 15th will be the due date for the RFPs, and I believe also the board may be discussing at a later date or discussing tonight, perhaps a committee to be working on that. Also, we'll be working on the grant application for the Kiwanis field to see about getting funds to fund the transition plan, ADA self-evaluation and transition plan for Kiwanis. I've been in touch with the schools about reviewing and renewing the agreement for the Memorial School, which we carry on our insurance, and I'll be discussing that more with the board. Sandy and I will be meeting in the next couple of weeks on electricity. We were contacted by our representative from Constellation Energy, which operates through the Mass Municipal Association, that through aggregation, a different kind of aggregation, offers favorable electric rates to communities. And the contract that the town has with Constellation expires in December, so we'll be getting an early start on renegotiating those rates for the town. I also understand last fall, the selectmen discussed somewhat aggregation for the community at large, which some communities offer. And then we'll be meeting in 2 weeks with the representative to discuss that and revisit that, which I think was the board's vote at the time. And also looking for favorable action from the board for a part-time dispatcher for the police department, Corey Euchster, forwarded to me by the chief. He had also served as an intern over the last several months with the police department, did very well, very highly recommended from the chief. I'd be asking for the board to waive the 15-day review period on this appointment for a part-time dispatcher.
The board has the application. All members should have that application, and you want to act on that now. And for clarity, the personnel board wasn't contacted because of the nature of needing to fill this immediately due to a vacancy, and public safety comes first, so that's why it's moved through that process. Normally, the personnel board will review or be involved in all interview processes, so.
Yeah, there have been a couple of vacancies there that necessitate this being acted on quickly, plus this time of year with vacations, et cetera, coming up at the end of the year, it's become important.
So if the board would make motion to approve waiving the 15-day requirement for the town manager.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we appoint Corey Egester
Euchster,
as a part-time police dispatcher and waive the 15-day period.
Second motion?
That's unanimous action of the board, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's it?
That's all I have.
Okay, we have a guest tonight, Treasurer Collector Mr. Glowacki. You want to come up, Ken?
I have a bunch of signatures for you. I don't know which direction you want to go.
Chairman?
Basically, to explain this, this is a bond anticipation note, and Ken, could you explain the rate so people realize how fortunate we are to get that rate?
There you go.
And the situation, how we pay down that bond.
Yep, this was for the Quint that we bought 3 years ago for $365,000. We are now doing it for another $50,000 pay down. So this bond anticipation note is worth $212,007. Don't ask me, it's the way it started off, and it's been there ever since. We got it for 1.24% for the 1 year, and Unibank was the low bidder, and we received a total of 4 bids. Pretty much all the same, but 1.24 was the lowest.
Very good. Board have any comments?
Would that be the lowest rate we've got in the years we've had the truck?
No, I think we actually had one lower a year ago, slightly lower, yeah. I don't recall what it was, but it was over 1, and it was between 1 and 1.2,
Very good.
yeah.
Okay, and we're signing this document as we speak. Ken, you have a couple of, I just need clarification. You have one, we don't want to mis-sign it. Is it on this side?
Yeah, you check, yes, that's the, right. And you should probably have a simple vote to
Yep.
just accept it.
Could we have motion to accept the bond anticipation notice submitted by the treasurer collector?
What's the company we're,
It's, well, it's Unibank.
Unibank.
make a motion, we accept the bond from Unibank. Was it $212,007?
Yes.
Second the motion.
The unanimous action of the board. And there's one here, Ken, that says town clerk. So
Yeah,
I
I'm gonna
assume that's
get,
her copy,
I'll
right?
get her afterwards.
Okay,
And
if you could just sign
Okay.
it.
She had to leave.
Yeah.
I've already talked to her about it, so she's expecting.
So if we
Do
pay
that.
down 50 and it's down to 212, we're getting down there. Our debt level is getting better, so that's a good thing.
Yes, and
Yes.
right now with 50, it'll be another 3 years that we could keep it going, or we could pay even the whole thing. It depends, but with the interest rates being this low, it's a good time to take advantage of that,
Right, right.
you know.
Money. Okay. I'll just pass these down for the signatures. Steve doesn't know this, but he's signing the loan on your car.
It's a good rate. It's Kelly's.
Yep. The last page, that goes to the town clerk.
Where you want me to
Over
sign?
there anywhere's fine, it's,
Got it?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Nice and easy. Next on our agenda, and gentlemen, one is on our website for a contract, for a bid contract to be signed for $117,000. That one is under Article 12 or Chapter 90 funds, as it's well known. And we also have another one that was sent to us in printed form, but I don't know if you have a copy of this. And this one is for $386,383. These both come out of the appropriation, or come out of the vote at the annual town meeting under Article 12. Because these are well over $25,000, we need to approve and authorize the town manager to enter in a contract upon these. So, do you want to start with the first one, Gary?
Make a motion?
Yeah, please.
Mr. Chairman, I motion we authorize the town manager to sign into an agreement with Highway Rehabilitation Corporation of Brewster, New York for the amount of $117,272.52.
Second the motion.
That's unanimous action of the board.
Ready for the next one, sir?
Mhm,
That's the
please.
Keating Company. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we authorize the town manager to sign a contract with P.J. Keaton Company from Lunenburg, Mass. in the amount of $386,383.
Second the motion.
That's unanimous action of the board. Also, there was a request in there for a 20% stipulation. It's the board's action that we did not approve the 20% contingency. If it goes over, the director can come back to the board to seek additional funding. Okay? Next on the agenda, Mr. DiCarlo property on Christian Hill Road came to the board about 6 months ago and offered a parcel of land, I believe 14 acres roughly, for consideration for the board. It's presently under Chapter 61, which is agricultural, and simply put that anyone that is under 61 has to offer the land to the town before they can sell it. And once they do sell it, they need to settle an agreement with the Board of Assessors to pay back some of the back taxes, and going forward, as the taxes would have been were it not 61A, and going forward to pay the full tax assessment. It came before the board, we looked at it, I know, Steve, you weren't on the board, but the price being somewhere in excess of $1 million, the board felt at this time that the town did not have the funds that would make it logical for us to pursue that. Am I in agreement?
Yes, sir.
So you understand? So in order to do this process correctly, we need to vote to not go forward with the acquisition of land, and let Mr. DiCarlo know that the first refusal we are waiving, and we have no interest in acquiring that land. So I would take a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I motion the town waives the right of first refusal on the DiCarlo property.
Second the motion.
And that's unanimous action. Thank you. And town manager, I know, has been in contact with Mr. DiCarlo on this, so. To Mr. Reed, you have an intermunicipal agreement that is presently in place but needs to be renewed.
Yeah, this is a renewal of an intermunicipal agreement the town has with the town of Northbridge for conservation agent services. I've had a number of discussions with the chair of the Conservation Commission and also with the town manager of Northbridge. I think both towns are very happy with the present agreement. Northbridge, in fact, was interested in getting additional hours, but that would have put the contract over 20 hours and would have involved benefits, and so Northbridge is happy to renew. The only changes that were made was instead of having the agreement renew the 1st of June, we agreed with Northbridge to make it for 13 months, so it will renew at the beginning of the fiscal year, make it easier to remember. And then the amounts were updated, taking into account both the increase in wages for the agent and also payroll costs that the town has were increased, workers' comp costs, for example, and those were the modifications that were made. It's been reviewed by the Conservation Commission, and they're happy with it, and it's been sent to Northbridge.
Gentlemen, any questions?
No, sir. Pretty
No?
straightforward.
Okay, a motion to, please.
Mr. Chairman, I motion we renew the intermunicipal agreement with the town of Northbridge for the conservation agent until July 2018.
Well said.
Second.
Unanimous action.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Next is, everyone is well aware that the acoustics in our town hall have posed problems for public forums, and we've certainly heard, no pun intended, the message loud and clear. So I asked the town manager if we could begin to look in this process as to possibly an RFP for acoustical study. I think it's everyone's intent. We don't want to spend a lot of money. There aren't that many meetings in that hall at this point, but going forward, naturally, no meeting is unimportant. That's a double negative, but all meetings are important. So we would want to improve that sound effect. Certainly, Candidates Night, which you participated in, and I had in the past, and I'm sure Gary has, was difficult, and citizens are entitled to at least be able to have better communication. I know we spoke to Mr. Fowler, who's here tonight, and you can only do so much with the system. The sound echoes, it echoes. So that's where we are. We received a message, an email as a reminder from former Selectman Brochu, and he did pass on some information which he had. I believe the whole board was copied. It went to the Board of Selectmen, and that's certainly a good basis to start off with. So do you gentlemen have any comments or any suggestions you'd like to go forward with this?
I know, I just know a lot of people have had a lot of negative things to say about that, but we just got to figure out what the cost is for 2 meetings a year, whether it's worth it or not.
Right. It's certainly, we know it's an issue. It's just a matter of, the cost.
Even if you can do anything with a room that large,
Right, the shape of the ceiling. There's going to be some challenges.
no harm in trying.
Right. So we'll see what it costs, and the RFP. If it's excessive, well, Plan B, right? Okay, thank you. You're all set in that, right?
Do we need a motion or anything? Dan?
No, it's just going to start the process to look. We have every year the Whitney and Racine monuments, which markers, historic markers, play a prominent part in the Board of Memorial Day exercise, and the Board of Selectmen are part of that process. And so we have a request from the Historical Commission, I believe, and I don't want to misstate, I believe it is them, for the purposes of upgrading the monuments. And we have an invoice before us. The amount is, I'm waiting for this to open. We're all technology. Thank you. $300 is the amount to Whitensville Monument Works. Anyone have any comment to this?
No, sir?
The only request I'd say is it makes sense to take from Racine Beautification, because that has substantial funds and it is qualified. So, motion?
Mr. Chairman, I motion we pay the Whitensville Monument Works $300 for the cleaning of 2 monuments and 7 raised markers from the beautification fund.
I agree.
Unanimous action of the board. Thank you. Next, the Fire and EMS Study Committee. It's a part of our bylaws, and you should have copies of it here. It's under Chapter 20 of our general bylaw, and basically what it does, it sets a structure. When the fire department was reorganized, it put in a structure process for the Fire EMS Advisory Committee consisting of 5 members, 1 full-time firefighter, EMT, 1 call member, 1 EMS member, 1 citizen at large, and the chief, all appointed by and will serve at the pleasure of the Board of Selectmen. And then it discusses responsibilities, and basically it's a policy board. This was done, again, when the fire department was reorganized. I asked to put this on there because I sat in on many of their meetings, and there's been somewhat of a lapse. In all candor, I think we maybe need to look at this and see if there's some way we can improve or enhance it to make it more beneficial for not only the fire, but the citizens of Upton. So I'd open it up to discussion. I know, Gary, you being a fireman, you have better expertise on this than I would, but you have any comment to this?
And personally, I don't really think the committee serves much value, but I know it means a lot to the guys. So I think if we did anything, this is kind of like their voice, since they're not unionized or anything, and this is how they feel that they can get their voice across. I just think it's got too much management on this to really represent them guys.
Okay.
Without knowing when the last time they met and knowing what their mission statement or charge is, I would think it'd be beneficial to have. It's just a matter of, maybe we sit down with them or have them call a meeting and maybe try to refocus it, if that makes any sense.
It does. I was at the last meeting, and I'm going to guess, but I'm going to guess it was November. So it's been quite a while, and we had things get in the way, to be very candid. And there were people that were on administrative leaves, and not administrative, but on leaves, and that did disrupt the process. But I think the membership, the way it's structured, the person can only serve for 2 years, and then they're required to be a period of time to elapse before they can reapply to be on it. So that restricts the pool of people that are willing to come forward. But at the town meeting, I did have a couple of members that said, I'd like to be there. I think it needs more diversity from the membership, and I don't mean that by gender or race. I mean by job responsibility and position within the department. So I'd like to ask something, and I throw this out, but I'd like to just propose, Gary, would you like to meet with the chief and get input from him and start the process of researching this?
Sure.
Do you have a problem with that?
Nope, makes good sense.
If you want to, you're more than welcome to. I'm just thinking he's got the administrative background in fire and full-time fire department. You know how other departments have worked. You
Sure.
comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay.
I think I got to reach out to the call guys too.
Well, that's what I meant. I didn't mean to narrow it down to that point. Okay, good. Next, we have our annual appointments. We have a number of appointments that the board makes. For total transparency, we have had these annual appointments for a considerable amount of time, so we've all had an opportunity to review these. It's not like we're seeing them for the first time tonight. Many of us have gone through this, embedded this process to feel comfortable with the people up for reappointment. Sandy, thank you for the chart. It's very simple and easy to follow. Obviously, anybody that's in green with an X is a one-year appointment. If it says 2, it's 2. If it's 3, it's 3. Required by bylaw, they're all different. So I'd open it up first for any questions.
Yep, pretty straightforward.
The only one I'd ask is we hold on we have applications for the zoning board of appeals, if we could hold on that one until we're done with the appointment, so just.
What about the county advisory? Want to do that one last?
Yeah, no, we can do those too. Yep.
That's you.
Yeah, I know. And I'm also on here, another one under OPEB Trust Commissioners, so my name's not there, but I will be. So Chair always sits in on that. So if you're okay, I'll let Gary start.
Sure.
Gary?
Mr. Chairman, my motion, we reappoint the following people for one-year terms. Copeland Page as the town attorney.
Sorry to interrupt. Actually, technically, they changed their name to K and P.
Oh, K and P. Okay. K and P.
We want to be
I
accurate.
had this on here.
Okay.
Gmail, wasn't
James Bates Jr. to the Central Mass Regional Planning Delegate. Mr. Bob Fleming to the County Advisory Board member. Janet Nowicki to the Disability Affair Grievance Coordinator. To the Green Committee, Robert Jordan, Brad Ralph, Marcella Stassen, William Taylor. To the Land Stewardship Committee, Scott Hine, Michael Penco, Marcella Stasso, Bill Tower, Mary Overholt. To the municipal hearing officer, Jennifer Walsh. To the open space committee, Rick Holmes, Alan Manioff, Mike Penco, Marcella Stassa, and Bill Taylor. To opiate task force, Bob Fleming, Gary Darty, Chief Aaron Goodale, Chief Mike Bradley, Joe Mabruska, Amy Leon, Al Holman.
Could I just ask the ones, you have not got response for ones in pink, right?
I gave you an updated list,
Oh,
so
okay.
Gary has the most recent.
Okay, all right, good. I'll just, go ahead, Gary, sorry.
Kelly McElroy, Michelle Cotton, Janet Nowicki, and Steve Matalian. Parking clerk, Kelly McElroy. Record assess officer, Kelly McElroy, Mike Bradley. Tree warden, Vinnie Roy. Let's see, these are 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3. Council on Aging,
One second.
Grace Wadsworth, and Paula LaPoe. Let's see, Historical Commission, Joan Burrell. And to the OPEB, Kenny Costa, Ken Gawicki, and Bob Fleming. And that's all the 1 years. Terms.
Okay. Okay, that's a motion for one-year appointments?
Second motion?
That's unanimous, okay. Now you go into the others.
You ready for the 2-year? Let's see. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we appoint the following people to their spots for 2 years. The Affordable Housing, Amanda Graham, Karen Intinelli, Richard Whitehouse, Richard DeJardin. Cable Advisory Committee, Dominic Combs. Let's see. Council on Aging, Joseph McLaughlin, and Myra Bigelow.
Can you just move back to community CPC?
Yep.
Dave, back, Dave Adams.
Oops, sorry. That's it. I have that as 3 years.
I'm sorry, I thought,
Yep.
okay.
Okay, go ahead, keep going.
Disability Commission, Bob Carnegie. Let's see. Fire and EMS Committee, Scott Van Rollin. Let's see. And that's it for 2 years.
So motion, second,
Second motion?
unanimous action?
We'll do the 3-year ones. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we appoint the following to 3-year terms. Let's see. Dave Adams for the Community Preservation Committee. Conservation Committee, Mike Panko, Christine Scott. Council on Aging, Richard Provost. Laurie Fantinelli. Let's see. Cultural Council, Donna Marie Floyd. Disability Commission, Janice Nowicki. Historic Commission, George Patterson. Don Spango. Personnel Board, Dave Scribner. And, Veteran Affairs, Robin Fletcher. And Zoning Board of Appeals, Richard Desjardins.
Could you hold on that, this
Yep.
zoning board?
Yep. And then Stedman Briggs.
Yep. And
Cynthia Robertson,
so,
bond register of voters, 3 years.
And Cynthia Robin for the Register of Voters.
3 years. The other one, there was one I think might be omitted, and that was on the
OPEB trust fund?
trust fund, yeah.
Yeah, the top name?
Mr. McGuire,
He can't,
he can't?
yeah, he
Well-
was updated on Gary's sheet.
How many people are gonna answer me? Okay, all right, so, okay, so that's all 3 year?
Yes, sir.
We can always correct if there's an omission at a future meeting. So that's his
Okay.
motion, your second?
Second motion?
Unanimous action of the board. So these are the appointments to date, and again, we can amend or make correction if there's an omission or an error on this.
Sorry if I butchered anybody's name.
No? Oh. Call me sir, so that scares me. Okay, next on our agenda is discuss the summer meeting schedule. Traditionally, the Board of Selectmen reduces its scheduled meetings in July and August. Usually we meet once in July and once in August. Again, within 48 hours, we're able to post at any given time should a need arise. But usually in the summer, things quiet down, not always. And then after Labor Day, everything ramps up, and believe it or not, we start the budget process already. So, anyone have any comments as to what is preferable? I'm pretty much open, so either July or August.
Yeah, whatever you pick.
Yeah, no particular preference.
Okay, so we know it won't be the week of the 4th, so we'll cover that one. So if the board's comfortable, I will meet with the town manager and we'll schedule a couple of dates and then send it out to both of you, and then if there's a problem, you can let us know.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. And I know, does town manager have a problem with?
No, any date that works for the board, they're all equal to me.
Yeah, right, okay. We have the liaison assignments for the board, and as I mentioned, these are typically done so that other boards that within the town or commissions, if they need an outreach, they can come to a given member of the board rather than, you know, try and reach all three of us. It allows them to have a sense of communication, so let me get to it. Okay, thank you. I'm looking for the printed format, but we have, usually, we block it in the threes. We've done this for years. We have Board of Assessors, Capital Budget, FinCom, and Mendon Upton Regional as one, BVT, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals is another, Affordable Housing Trust, Board of Health, Library Trustees, Recreation Commission, Treasurer Collector. These are all elected or boards outside of the purview of the Board of Selectmen. Therefore, if, i.e., we need to communicate with the school, it's easy to have one selectman just go through that process and expedite. It makes it easier for everyone. Does anyone have a preference? I don't know how it was last year. I think we just went 1, 2, 3. Are you okay with that?
Sure, that's
Yeah, I
fine.
just didn't know if you wanted to balance them out, so we each have 4.
Sure.
This
Okay.
one's got 5 on it.
Yeah. All right, what do you say we move treasurer collector to the middle? And then, so I will have Board of Assessors, Capital Budget, FinCom, and Mendon Upton Regional. Gary, you'll have Blackstone Valley, Planning Board, Zoning Board of Appeals, Treasurer Collector, and you'll have Affordable Housing Trust, Board of Health, Library Trustees, and RecCom. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If we're all comfortable with that, we don't need a motion. It's just an understanding amongst us. Great. Thank you
Okay.
for giving me that. General bylaw change Title II, Chapter 1, Section 2E, or Section 2A. Basically, for many, many years, well, there's a member in the audience tonight that go back, a couple of members in the audience tonight that go back to when the town meeting was always held on a Saturday after the Monday election. Well, now the town meeting is held on a Thursday after the Monday election, and we spoke to, and town manager has, and I have, with the town clerk, and it's a lot of work to run an election on a Monday and then prep up and running for a town meeting on Thursday. It's been brought to our attention by citizens as well as people, elected officials within the town, that it kind of makes sense to hold the town meeting after, before the election, and hold the election after the town meeting. And the easiest way to do that would be to defer the election to a time sometime after our presently scheduled town meeting. Our town meeting's on a Thursday. We could have an election a week and a half later, and it would be, at the town clerk's request, a Tuesday, which is the most prominent day for elections in our country. So it would be consistent with the presidential and all the annual elections. So this is open for discussion. Nothing's done at this time, but this is starting the process for discussion. Do you have anything you want to?
No, I think it's actually a very good idea. Being newly elected, you know, you get elected on a Tuesday and you have town meeting on a Thursday night, and you get thrown into everything, and you don't understand why the board voted for half the things they have and why the warrant and the articles set up. I think it's, you know, lets the previous board kind of finish their business that they started from the year prior.
Yeah, that's important. For myself, I just went through that process, moving from FinCom to Board of Selectmen, so there's a situation where articles and work that you put towards that particular board, you're no longer on that board. So I think that it certainly makes sense. I think Mendon does it that way, and many of the area towns do. So I think it makes sense to make the change.
And I was always resistant to this point. However, my only concern was that someone that is seeking the office of, say, Board of Selectmen, stands at the annual town meeting as chairman. And do they use that as a forum to, I don't know. Other towns seem to be able to do it successfully, so I'm not adverse to it. I just put it out there. So in order to do this, we would need to change our bylaws, and we will have discussion with the town manager and our council to look at setting up a bylaw change. And if you're in agreement, we'll discuss it at a future meeting as to bring it into town meeting.
Yeah, I agree.
Any changes? Okay. All right, fine. We have a couple of other things that are not on our agenda, but we received a letter from the town clerk that there was no one seeking the office of cemetery commission. That's an open position. I believe the commissioners are going to send the Board of Selectmen a letter notifying us of that, and should a candidate come forward and request election to that, the Board of Selectmen and the cemetery commissioners would elect somebody to fill that seat to the next term, next election. So that's open. Anybody that's interested, please feel free to contact cemetery commissioners or the Board of Selectmen's office. Also, the citizens have been notified that the infamous bridge on Fisk Mill Road will be closed June 26th. I will definitely be there for that closing ceremony. It's going to be a hardship on some people because all that traffic, and it is considerable, that comes up over that road out of Hopedale and Milford will now be probably going up further to Glenview and coming in that way. And so people on Glenview are going to have quite a bit of traffic flowing by. They do already, but it's going to be more, but there's no way around it. So I'll take a question when we're done. Yeah, okay, I'll get back to you as soon as we're done with this. Another thing, the feasibility for 3 Main Street, talking with the town manager, I think it's behooves us, it's almost foolish of us not to, is to form a feasibility for the usage of that building and to work in conjunction with the firm that's going to look at the structural engineering and design. So this board is now opening up invitation to anybody that's interested in serving on a feasibility to look at the potential usage for 3 Main Street, which is also known as the former Holy Angels Church. As you know, town meeting appropriated money for us to go in and look at the study to determine the value of that building to the town. If we do find it does have the value that we think it does, we would bring it to a fall town meeting for voters to look for acquisition of that property. So, again, the invitation's open to anyone that's interested in serving on that. It would probably run no more than from July till September, early October. It's not a long-term commitment. And lastly, I'd ask the town manager, could you elaborate further on Kiwanis Beach? It looks at this point that we will be closing off the parking area in that through the summer months based upon the timeline to get it corrected, but I'll defer that to you at this point.
Well, we did have an issue with the accessibility of the walkway. The walkway is not in compliance with Architectural Access Board and ADA codes. We were considering asking for a waiver, or a variance rather, from the Architectural Access Board, but these waivers also have to go through the local independent living group, whom we have been out to Kiwanis with to get their advice, to show them the situation of Mr. Mike Kennedy. They've made it clear that they wouldn't support a variance request unless the town put in temporary railings. And the prices that we've got for railings, whether they were actually installed or whether, and the recreation director looked into temporary railings, like an aluminum setup that would be established there, we would rent for a while and then taken down. That turned out to be even more expensive. The estimate for the temporary railings, if they were installed, and of course they need footings and so forth, they were put in properly, was about $22,000. And I think the general feeling was, and I've discussed this with the Recreation Commission, perhaps to some extent with the Finance Committee, is that for that kind of money, and these wouldn't be able to be reused again since the configuration would change when we put in the actual compliant walkway, then for that kind of money it would be better to close the lot. So right now we're looking at, as I mentioned earlier, applying for a grant from the Office of Disabilities for what's known as a self-evaluation and transition plan, which will not only look at Kiwanis but all of the town facilities, show what needs to be done in order to make them fully ADA compliant. I'm hoping that it's not gonna be a great deal of money, since many of the town facilities, this building, for example, I would think would be pretty much fully compliant. An excellent job was done on this building. The fire station is fairly new, the police station's fairly new. We wouldn't be doing it for the schools, so, since they're regional, so I was hoping it wouldn't be an exorbitant amount, but we'll be applying for a grant that's now open. The application date is now July 10th, and they're funded on a rolling basis, so I guess it's gonna be up to the state and how quickly they can act on a grant application to see whether or not the town would be ready, have the plan complete, and see what the cost would be to bring this for a fall town meeting. If the parking lot was closed, then naturally that's not gonna be available for this spring and fall season. If we're not able, if the town isn't able to bring it to the fall town meeting, then it may have to wait until the spring to be funded. Because we would need that transition plan to show what the total costs are gonna be at Kiwanis. I think one consideration when that article was taken off the town meeting warrant to put in a walkway was, well, we don't know what the total cost is gonna be. Are there other issues at Kiwanis that we don't know about? So the self-evaluation plan will be necessary to get the total picture. If it's not ready for the fall, then obviously it will have to wait till the spring. Then we'll see how quickly any modifications could be made so we don't miss next summer. But unfortunately, that's where we are with Kiwanis. We're trying to move it forward as quickly as possible. I think we've explored every avenue that we can to see about using it for this season. But between the cost of the temporary walkways, railings, conditions that would be put on any kind of variance request, it just doesn't look that we'd be able to, if we wanted to comply with code, it doesn't look like we would be able to use that upper lot this season.
Comments? So this board is comfortable with the fact that we will publicly notify everyone that the upper lot will be closed through the season? I believe you had conversation with the RecCom too.
I met with them last week. They understand the situation. Naturally, they're hoping that things that can move along as quickly as possible, which we're trying to do so that we don't miss next season. But again, it's going to be up to the state whether we do get funded for the transition plan and how quickly they'll make the grant award.
Okay. I don't think we need it, but maybe we should get motion to vote to close the upper parking lot till a time to be determined. Could you make that motion?
Mr. Chairman, I motion we close the Kiwanis Upper Beach parking lot until the ADA issues are rectified.
Agreed.
All right, it's unanimous action of the board, so now everyone knows, and that the action's been taken.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I have one other item that I
Sure.
didn't bring up in my report, which is a date for the board to meet for the town manager interviews.
Oh, please, yeah.
Well, the town manager screening committee met last night. MRI, the consultants were here. I had met with them their previous meeting. Right now, the schedule is, Marcia's here. The schedule is for the screening committee and a team from MRI to do the first round of interviews on Saturday, June 10th. In order not just to expedite the process, but I think also because it still looks like there may be one or more applicants coming in from out of state. The hope was that the board could then do their follow-up interviews as soon as possible after the 10th. I think the hope is that, I don't know if it changed last night, to have 3, maybe 4 candidates for the selectmen. And again, the hope is that the screening committee will agree with the MRI team on who they are. So then it'd be up to the board to schedule a convenient times to interview 3 to 4 candidates.
Okay, it's my understanding, Gary, that you have availability on Monday during the day.
Yes, sir.
Would you be able to make during the day?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I can do it
Mondays,
then, so.
Monday would work.
Whatever time works for them, you have a cap, you have to be completed by what,
5 o'clock.
5. So if it were morning through early afternoon,
How long of a time frame per candidate,
well,
do you think?
if there's 3 candidates, and I can't say, I don't know, I post it, and however long that process goes.
Yeah, and of course, the interviews on the 10th, because it's a screening committee, their preliminary interviews could be an executive session, but the board's interviews would be an open session. So I think, and there'll be someone from MRI here on that Monday, if that's the day that you determine for the interviews. And I can work with MRI or the chair, or we'll figure out a process for the board to determine what the format is going to be, the questions, et cetera.
Are we comfortable like starting at 10?
Yes, I would
Would that
think.
work? And that would allow, and we could take a lunch break, because obviously if it's a long-term interview process, we don't want to rush this through. Okay, thank you. In my omission, I asked to, my error, I asked to hold on the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have two applicants. With Mr. Laurie's resignation, we had two applicants that came forward to request appointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So we have a James R. Bates Jr. and a Richard Desjardins, both associate members at this point and have been for some time, and have both requested appointment to fill that vacancy. So I open this up to the debate for the board. Any comments? No? You're both familiar with both?
Yep,
I think we're all familiar
Yes.
with both of the persons.
Both
They're
candidates.
both sitting on the board now?
Excuse me?
They're both on the board now?
Associate
And they're
members,
both-
correct. So I would open this up. Anybody want to make motion for a candidate?
Mr. Chair, make a motion we appoint Richard Desjardins to full-time member.
Does that have a second?
Second it?
Okay, we have a second for Mr. Desjardins. Any other? No? Okay, I'll call a vote, the roll call for Richard Desjardins. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Okay, that was simple. Congratulations, Mr. Desjardins, and I hope Mr. Bates stays on, because these vacancies seem to be coming more and more, and we need volunteers to come forward, so thank you. Did I miss anything, gentlemen?
Tessier, Mr. Tessier, on the planning board.
Oh, yes, thank you. We were informed by the town clerk that to our notice, that only one response to our notice for the position of associate member for the planning board, Mr. William Tesmer. He presently serves as associate member. He submitted an email to the town clerk indicating his wish to be reappointed, and the planning board and the board of selectmen need to make this appointment. The planning board has already voted 5-0 in favor at its meeting on May 9, 2017, to re-elect Mr. Tesmer, or appoint Mr. Tesmer, and now it's up to the board to concur or not. Does the board have any comment to this?
No, sir.
If you don't, if you could just read to make appointment to the planning board, associate member?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we appoint William Tesmer to planning board associate member to expire
It would be next May,
May 2018.
right?
Yeah, I agree.
That's unanimous action, thank you. And
Well,
it's that time of year.
did you want
You have
to
the,
accept this resignation?
Who is this?
Jim, on historical.
I didn't see that. That wasn't part of our notes. Okay, we'll address that then.
Okay.
We also have a request from Mr. Eric Roostel to be appointed to the Open Space Land Stewardship, and that one just came in this week.
Sorry, I forwarded that to the committee, and they're reviewing that.
They haven't got back to you yet?
No.
Okay, we'll hold on that. And just to make sure we've got them all,
And
we have a request for a resignation for Annette Castanway. She has requested a resignation effective immediately on the Council of Aging.
Motion?
No comment?
Motion,
Do you want to
please?
make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept Annette Castaway's resignation from Council on Aging.
I second the motion.
And with regret, thank you, Annette, a Worcester lady, by the way. Had to make that comment.
Oh.
Yes. I tease him all the time about that. Okay. And officially, let's recognize Mr. Laurie's request for resignation from the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'll let you read that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept Joe Laurie's resignation from the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second the motion.
That's unanimous action. And we have a resignation from Mr. James Brochu. I'll read, I would like to submit my resignation from the Historical Commission. I have seen this commission come a long way, and the current board is a great membership with great leadership. It is great to see. For that reason, I feel it is time for me to step down. and that's Mr. James Brochus. So if we could do this formally, please?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept James Brochu's resignation from the Historic Commission.
Second motion.
And that's unanimous action of the board. Okay, I believe we've covered all the resignations and, okay, I don't see anything else. Does the board have anything else?
No, sir.
Nothing.
All right, we had some questions in the audience. Mr. Fowler, you were gonna, Mr. Fowler?
Yes.
Up, your hand was up
Just
first.
confirmation.
Yes.
What was the scheduled time when Fisk Mill would close the road?
June 26th, that day.
The reason I asked was the state's closing 140, I think, next week for some kind of maintenance. It would be kind of difficult to have both Fisk Mill and 140 closed between tradesmen and Adams.
We'll ask, because this is in conjunction with the town of Milford, so they would know 140.
I
as
drove
well.
140 today, and they were doing work on it. I didn't
Yeah,
say anything
well,
about a road closure.
The
Yeah, there's
best,
construction on the side, but it looks like the still road will be open. I don't think those dates will overlap.
well, what we'll do, Bob, you can check and see what status is and call DOT and find out what their plans are. Certainly, if both roads are closed, that's a problem. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Mr. Flaherty, did you have?
That
Yes.
Fiscal Road thing and the Robert Fleming Bridge.
Yeah, I knew you were going there, thank you.
No, that was closed for a long time in 1955 when that bridge washed out, and that was the thing. And, you know, it's gotta be 5 times as many cars and houses on Glenview Street now than there were before. I mean, the great basic problem is when you come out of Glenview on the 140, it's tough. So, we'll get by.
We'll get by. You had a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
Marcia Keselowski with Lane. Reversing the annual meeting and the elections, I think is a great idea, but I wanted to just check on one other thing associated with this. If we're going to have an annual election after the meeting, can we put the questions on the ballot from the annual meeting? And the reason for that is, for the annual meeting first, you'd have the recording of the meeting that people would have a chance to view, and people for voting would have 12 hours on the day of voting to vote. So they'd have time to think about it, they'd be able to have time to think about the questions, review the recording, and then vote on the ballot. It would give people a chance that wouldn't be able to vote or come to the annual meeting to vote, a chance to vote. It'd be better representation.
Are you saying put the ballot on the annual town election?
Take the articles from the annual election and add them to the paper ballot, and that way people would have 12
No, you
hours
can't.
to vote.
By law, we have to conduct a town meeting where everyone's present. The only time there's an exemption to that is if you have a mandated ballot question, such as an override vote or a major change that would affect the financial status of the town. The town meeting is structured for exactly that. We post a warrant by law, it has to be posted, it has to be notarized. There is that process. We can't do a little of both, it's one or the other, and it's town meeting. It's the way our bylaws are structured, and I don't believe the Commonwealth would allow you to do that either. So,
Is it possible to change the bylaw? Because a lot of people were disappointed that they couldn't come to the annual meeting.
well, I'm going to be blunt, and nobody likes this, but 123 people out of 5,600 voters came to that meeting. That's less than 2% of the population went to the town meeting. So if they're that concerned, they come to the town meeting, rather than us post a ballot so they can vote on paper. And when you vote on paper, you don't have deliberation, and that's the whole purpose of the town meeting, is to have an opportunity to debate an article. You wouldn't have debate.
No, I'm just saying you go through the articles, have the debate, and instead of taking the yelling at the meeting and trying to figure out if that was a yay or a nay, then you would have.
You wouldn't be able to do that. The state would never let you. It'd be conflict of law. So, thus the town meeting, and that would have to stay the same. But to have a town meeting and then 10 days later hold an election, no problem. That would work, and as Steve said, many other towns have done it, and it's worked successfully. So, for once, I'll listen to Mr. Flaherty and won't disagree with him. Are there any other comments?
I commend you,
Yep.
Mr. Fleming,
Yep.
for changing your position on that.
Thank you. There being none, the board is going to go into executive session To enter under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to litigation where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the board as declared by the chair. The board will also go into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, 21, Section number 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if the chair declares an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the town's bargaining position. Roll call, all those in favor of executive session? Mr. Doherty.
Gary Doherty, aye.
Steve Vitale, aye.
Robert Fleming, aye. We're in executive session. Thank you.